The people of Scotland expect politicians to focus on what matters: rising household bills, their children's education, getting a GP appointment, fixing the roads, keeping communities safe. Yet the priority for out-of-touch SNP, Labour, Lib Dem and Green MSPs is an urgent debate about the Holyrood toilets. Does Parliament agree with the Scottish Conservatives that this is a farcical waste of time?
Christine Graham.
Thank you, Presiding Officer. To ask the Scottish Parliament corporate body what its response is to the open letter to the Presiding Officer signed by cross-party MSPs and staff regarding the interim position on the use of facilities in the Parliament building.
Christine Graham.
Thank you very much, Deputy Presiding Officer, and I thank Patrick Harvey for raising this question, because it's important that the SPCB, for whom I speak, has the opportunity to set out the rationale for this collective and cross-party decision and to provide assurance that it's committed to offering an inclusive experience for all of those who work and visit Holyrood. Whilst we've been made aware of the open letter's existence via media reports, we have in fact only just received it this afternoon, and so the SPCB has not yet had a chance to consider it. We will, of course, consider the letter and will be happy to provide a response. In the meantime, the SPCB, having considered this sensitive issue, I'd like to make the following general points, if I may, in response to Mr Harvey. Firstly, the SPCB remains deeply committed to providing a welcoming and inclusive environment for all those who work at and visit Holyrood. That includes those in the trans and non-binary community, as well as those with other protected characteristics under the Equality Act. In fulfilling its various roles and responsibilities, the SPCB must balance the needs and requirements of all those with a range of protected characteristics under the Equality Act. It must also take all necessary steps to ensure the Parliament complies with its legal responsibilities in a timely manner. As stated by the EHRC, the law, as set out by the Supreme Court, is effective immediately, and those with duties under the Equality Act 2010 should be following the law and looking at what change, if any, need to be made to their policies and practices. The SPCB has for many years provided a wide range of inclusive facilities at Holyrood, including gender-neutral facilities. In light of the Supreme Court ruling, our advisers have considered an interim stance, and I emphasise interim, which supports the SPCB to continue to meet its legal responsibilities and to do so in a way that provides clarity and is inclusive for all of those using our facilities. A detailed equality impact assessment was undertaken, assessing the impact on each of the protected characteristics, and was published, together with the SPC paper, as part of the interim stance. This shows how we are balancing requirements across all groups based on the facilities we have available currently at Holyrood, and how we can create the optimal range of facilities for all users, balancing again the different protected characteristics. As members will be aware, the next phase of work to look at changes in the medium to longer term includes a wide consultation with staff, members, member staff and other stakeholders. This will include consultation with external groups and organisations who work regularly and closely with people with all protected equality characteristics as set out in the Equalities Act. This includes stakeholders with insight into and experience of gender assignment and other groups with a protected characteristic, as the SPC is required to balance rights for all those with a protected characteristic. I'm just about to come to the end of that answer. The further phase will also enable us to take account of the new EHRC Code of Practice when published later this year. I hope that's helpful.
Before calling the member, I should have advised the Chamber any members wishing to ask a supplementary question that haven't already pressed their buttons should do so. I would also hope that there will be maybe more brevity in the responses to supplementary questions. But Patrick Harvey.
The cross-party letter, which has been published online, has the support of 17 MSPs from 4 political parties and 31 members of staff, expressing serious concerns about the decision that's been made recently and drawing attention to the comments from Lord Sumption, former Supreme Court judge, who said that the Supreme Court's judgment has been misunderstood. In his words, it's important to note that you are allowed to exclude trans women from these facilities, but you are not obliged to. So in making the decision to take this exclusionary approach, I am concerned that the SPCB is risking taking us back to the breach of human rights which existed prior to the creation of the Gender Recognition Act in 2004, and a position that just as little as 10 years ago was the obsession of the extremist fringe of the US Republican Party. Presiding Officer, it is not enough to use words like inclusive experience and welcoming environment. Does the corporate body recognise the impact that this decision has already had on those who are being told that they are no longer permitted to use basic facilities like toilets on the same basis as everyone else, and who now feel unwelcome and demeaned in their own workplace?
We'll also need more brevity in questions going forward. Christine Graham.
Can I say it's rather unfortunate, some of the language that Mr Harvey has used, because the corporate body, I hope, acted in a tolerant and sensitive manner, in a very delicate and balanced manner. The Scottish Parliament has always sought to reflect the founding principles and to be an open, accessible institution to promote participation and equal opportunities. And we remain deeply committed to these principles and to provide, I know you don't like this word, inclusive environment where all, including those in the trans and non-binary community, feel supported and welcome to work and visit. The Parliament has for many years provided a wide and varied range of facilities across the building, including a number of single occupancy spaces available for and used by everyone.
Patrick Harvey.
If that is the intention of what the corporate body wishes to achieve, and I don't doubt that it may intend to do that, I have to say that the decision made recently fails to do so. The member also mentions the Code of Practice on which the EHRC are currently consulting. That Code of Practice suggests that birth certificates could be required from people merely because they are suspected of being transgender. And I have to say I feel almost nauseous using that language, because I'm old enough to remember how other queer people felt when we had to worry about whether we were suspected of being who we are in our society. Can the corporate body promise us that nobody will be required to provide birth certificates or other paperwork merely because someone intolerant suspects them of being transgender?
Christine Graham.
Can I advise Patrick Harvey, and I'm sorry if that's the issues that are being raised, as a service provider employer, making facilities available on expectations that people choose a facility respecting what we have done to balance different rights in line with our legal responsibilities. Our staff are always able to provide advice on the facilities available in Holyrood. Like other public sector bodies, and I can assure them this is not going to be policed by the corporate body, but like other sector bodies, if we have a complaints process which staff can advise on, which is also set out on our website for those who wish to complain, and which we will consider. But we are certainly not monitoring the use of public facilities as a corporate body.
We have a number of supplementaries. I hope they will be suitably brief, and the responses likewise. First, Eleanor Whittam.
Deputy Presiding Officer, I know that this guidance would have been drawn together with the desire to comply with the recent Supreme Court ruling and with the best of intentions, but it has created a degree of segregation that we have not experienced under the existing Equalities Act. Can I ask how the Scottish Parliament corporate body intends to resolve a situation where trans and non-binary people are reporting that they feel excluded from their nation's Parliament?
Christine Graham.
When I refer to complaining, that goes for complainers of all characteristics. So there is nothing in here that will take away from the rights of anybody entering this Parliament. We await the full guidance from ECHR into what can and can't be done. This is simply interim. If I could ask those concerned to bear with the corporate body until we are able to do our full consultation. We aim to balance fairly with justice and sensitivity the rights of all users of this Parliament.
Russell Findlay.
Thank you, Presiding Officer. The people of Scotland expect politicians to focus on what matters: rising household bills, their children's education, getting a GP appointment, fixing the roads, keeping communities safe. Yet the priority for out-of-touch SNP, Labour, Lib Dem and Green MSPs is an urgent debate about the Holyrood toilets. Does Parliament agree with the Scottish Conservatives that this is a farcical waste of time?
Christine Graham.
That's simply not a question for the corporate body. This was accepted as an urgent question, which I'm obliged to respond to.
Martin Whitfield.
I'm very grateful, Deputy Presiding Officer. To ask what consideration was given between the difference between the facilities that are available to the public and the facilities that are available to members of parliamentary staff, but also staff employed by MSPs.
Christine Graham.
I thank Martin Whitfield for his question. Officials consider the SPCB's various responsibilities as an employer, workplace provider, service provider and a public authority, which adds to the complexity in fulfilling our obligations in ensuring Holyrood is as inclusive as possible for all. Many of our staff use facilities in the public areas of the building, and many members of the public use facilities in the private areas, particularly during events, meetings and evening receptions. The SPC's interim stance, as set out in the EQIA, seeks to balance these different requirements.
Alex Cole-Hamilton.
Thank you, Presiding Officer. Christine Graham suggests that this decision has been taken on the need to balance the legal responsibilities of the Parliament as it pertains to the Supreme Court judgment. But as we've heard from Patrick Harvey, former Lord Justice Sumption has made it clear that there are no legal responsibilities for this Parliament. In fact, he said judges did not take a side and not provide an obligation to create single-sex spaces. It is a matter of choice for institutions. The EHRC have been challenged on how they will police this. We've heard about the use of birth certificates. I understand the SPCB don't expect this to be policed, but others may. Can I ask that no parliamentary staff member will be put in the position of having to challenge a toilet user in the future?
Christine Graham.
I expect, as I'm sure all members of the Parliament do, that members and the public treat each other with respect throughout their engagement, casual or formal, within this building, which would include the remarks that the member has just made.
Emma Roddick.
Thank you, Presiding Officer. This decision does seem premature and inconsistent with the Supreme Court ruling. The consultation that Christine Graham mentioned should have happened before any decision was made. And can I ask how the SPCB will ensure the dignity of trans and non-binary staff working in the Parliament? And does it recognise that this unexpected and surprising policy change has put them in an impossible situation and potentially a hostile working environment?
Christine Graham.
Well, I certainly hope and expect that this will not put anyone into this Parliament in a hostile environment. That is not the culture within this building, hasn't been in my 20-odd years here. As I said previously, this is simply an interim decision, an interim practical choice being made to comply with the Supreme Court ruling. Interim. There is now a full consultation going ahead, and I fully expect that at the end of that, members will see that the balance, that important balance between the rights of individuals, whatever their position, is dealt with appropriately and with sensitivity.
We've reached the time set for decision time. I've got 3 members who still wish to ask a question. I will get them in, but the questions will need to be brief. First, Jamie Green.
Thank you, Presiding Officer. Contrary to the view that this subject is simply a load of nonsense, many of us in this chamber are far more concerned about the well-being of those who choose to make this Parliament their workplace, and I think we owe them that dignity and respect. Can I simply ask the corporate body, giving the answer to a previous question, that the complaints procedure aforementioned cannot and will not be used as a means to prejudice anyone in this Parliament or to forcibly disclose any means of details of their private life, including their status relative to their gender?
Christine Graham.
Well, I'd have to write about how the complaints process actually works on the face of it. I haven't accessed it myself, but I can certainly tell you it has been used previously by somebody in the public making a complaint about somebody accessing facilities in the public area and was dealt with by the executives, the officials and the corporate body appropriately. So it has been used previously. But certainly if there was any sense of it being used for abuse, the corporate body would be mindful for that.
Thank you. All through the chair. Lorna Slater.
Members in this chamber may be aware of a lively internet conspiracy that I myself am a trans woman. If a complaint is made about me using a women's toilet, how does the SPCB expect me to demonstrate or prove my ability to use this toilet? Should I bring my birth certificate? Should I subject myself to a medical examination? If you could be clear, please.
Always through the chair. Christine Graham.
No one is asking anyone for any proof of anything, and I fully intend to use the gender-neutral toilets myself.
And finally, Craig Hoy.
Thank you, Deputy Presiding Officer. Could perhaps the member say whether or not the Scottish Parliament's corporate body's decision was unanimous? And if it was, does that mean that the Green member of that body both supported these measures but also wrote a letter in opposition to them?
Christine Graham.
The letter, which was written, is a private matter. I'm not in a position to disclose it. The recipients may disclose the contents of that letter if they wish. Decisions by the corporate body do not ever go to a vote. They're simply by consent.
Thank you, Ms Graham. That concludes the